No? Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Lev, and I am joined by two other Columbia alumni today at our live Empowered and Connection LinkedIn conversation. So, my name is Ashley Lev, and let me introduce my colleagues here. Go ahead.
Is Allison Yamamoto. I go by Allie for short. So attend Columbia University through the School of Ashley and I have done one of these lives before. Today's guest speaker. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Kendall to introduce himself.
Thanks, Allie and Ashley. Hello, my name is Kendall. I graduated from Columbia in 2017, a little bit a while ago. Wow. And yeah, here to kind of speak about my experiences, how I got to where I am, and just happy to be on the panel with these two lovely women.
Thank you so much. My name is Ashley Love, and I actually graduated probably 2 decades earlier from Barnard. And I had the distinct pleasure of being at Columbia for on Morningside campus as well as the Washington Heights campus. So I am a public health professional who is also a professor at University of Incarnate Word. I'm an active duty military spouse for the last 20 years, and I'm a mother. So I'm going to start us off with questions first, which is this one. Um, what was your childhood dream occupation? So I'm going to have Allie go first, then Kendall, and then I'll answer.
So, gosh, I feel as if a lot of your dreams are shaped by the books that you read surrounded with. So, growing up was heavily influenced by what my parents did. Dentist, and my father is a dentist. So our team basically, and my dream was to be. Evidently, I did not end up doing my own career track, but I think it was just really by their collaboration as well as just the patience. A lot of that service leadership was child. Kendall, what about you?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I remember my childhood occupation when I was 8, wanting to be somewhere in between like an entrepreneur, an astronaut, while simultaneously playing on a professional sports team. I didn't realize there's only 24 hours in a day. But yeah, that was really what I wanted to do when I was about 8, 9 years old. But honestly, as I got older and closer to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to really do. You hear about the big the big three: doctor, lawyer, engineering. My mom was in finance. My dad had his own business, so that entrepreneurial spirit was really ingrained into me. But yeah, I really didn't know, to be honest. But really wanted to, as I went to Columbia, wanted to pursue law first, and that's kind of where I started as I went to classes and started to figure out internships and things like that.
That's great, Kendall. I can definitely relate, Kendall. When I was at Barnard, I started off with biochemistry major, and just because my father was a scientist at Pfizer, and I thought that's what I wanted to do and be a teacher. And because my mom was a ballerina and oh my goodness, I had no coordination. So ballerina, although there was a really wonderful drama and dance um, department at Barnard, that was not something that I could do. And definitely, I think it was a journey for me as well to actually switch my major my senior year of psychology, and also ended up taking my first epidemiology class, which led me to be a public health professional years later. So that's wonderful. And then another question that Ali is going to pose to all of us is this one, right? So let me see.
Yeah, how your childhood dream occupations compare to your current career track.
Yeah, so let's see. Kendall, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah.
Spot.
So like I said, yeah, I didn't really know what I wanted, so I started off pursuing kind of the law route. I had some internships in that. It wasn't until my sophomore year that I was introduced to the growing field of data science and analytics. So by the time I entered my junior year, I was able to kind of figure out two different routes. It was either law or data science. And as I began to get really more interested in data science, I was able to shift a lot of my projects, a lot of my class objectives to a more statistical heavy and more um, SQL, Python, R heavy courses, and kind of implement that into my assignments. So that's kind of where I made the pivot, but I still wanted to figure out if I wanted to do law or not. So ended up working for a law firm as an analytics paralegal for 18 months, and then 4 months in realized I didn't want to do that. So kind of made the shift to data science, and I guess how it compares to what being a entrepreneur, astronaut, professional sports person. I guess you still have that entrepreneurial spirit. I worked for a couple of startups, and I helped the one I'm currently at right now go public, and it's still sciencey. It's still in the sciences, so I guess I'm still doing stuff like that, and just kind of carrying on that entrepreneurial spirit, just on Earth instead of in space. But yeah, that I would say that's how it compares now.
Well, Kendall, there's still time because, with the Air Force, they have Space Force now. Who would have thought, right? So, yeah. And Ali, I could go next. I know it's so difficult to decide, especially if you're in college and even after you graduate, you're still kind of searching. So, my solution, of course, was to go back to school. I was working in Harlem with HIV, AIDS children in the 90s. And then I said, okay, I could go back to the lab. This is, I feel comfortable. So I actually went back to bench research thinking, okay, maybe I made a mistake. I should go back. And ended up getting a nutrition degree, but realized I just did not like doing animal research. And that's how I discovered human research, except I got so emotional, so I couldn't picture myself going to medical school, like what we talked about, lawyer, medicine, and the traditional route. And right at Washington Heights, the School of Public Health was there. So after finishing my science advanced degree, I went over to public health, and that's how I discovered public health and ended up being in this career for the last 20 plus years. So, yeah, Ali, go ahead.
First of all, I want to comment on both Kendall and Ash. Interesting ways of kind of having a feeling, then kind of molding your own path along the way. Really resonates with me. I think that I really just having an understanding that I will spend those 4 years growing as making, you know, countless mistakes, out majors, etc. A lot of which so feel and kind of understand in, in the current feel a bit like haywire during the college years itself. I just really thought about what I wanted to be most foremost, and that was to be close to my family in California. I kind of trajectory. I thought about where I wanted to and how I could best angle myself towards the coast that I wanted to end up on, which is so during that time, technology was so I made sure to really integrate into my course to make sure that I was taking the innovation for my business concentration, that really track of eventually making my way back to the West Coast, my humble opinion. But that was kind of the sense.
Ali, that is wonderful. I think it's really Kendall and Ali, I have to say, it's so impressive that you guys actually had like strategic plan of all these courses. For me, I think it was more like a feeling at times, and sometimes I was really lost. I felt like, ooh, this is not the traditional route, you know. I should be doing A, B, and C, but at the end of the day, I think all of us looking back, we know we're on the right path, and we need to really enjoy that journey as we decide, which is really difficult to do. And family definitely is so important, especially during the pandemic. I'm so glad that some of us were near family for sure. So
Definitely. Yeah, no, you hit it right on the nail. I think even though we were maybe a bit strategic, like it definitely was a different path than what we had gone on going into college. And I know a lot of people who are really stuck on a path and like may not deviate from it if they aren't interested in something, or may not want to dive in or take that jump. um, yeah, that's something that I think all of us in Ali and I have something in common, where we deal with something different than what we were majoring in, um, kind of based on like our feeling and strategize for that.
yeah, no, that is so wonderful. And for me, I think it just life events. I was in a car accident when I was in college, which just
Oh
it
wow.
wasn't part of my life plan. And that kind of prevented, like, all the injuries were internal, so it was one of those, like, I have to be strong, going through physical therapy, and then realize I just couldn't keep up with it, and it was a hidden blessing at the end because it just gave me that courage to be like, "Oh, I need to switch majors," you know? So, yeah, so I think just that ability to listen, and also be able to strategize and figure out what you want to do, even if without the life events. I think that's really important. So, oh, that's awesome. So, Ali, what is our next question that we wanted to talk about today?
Oh yes. So the that we have is any advice that you or alumni who are at this what we might consider where they might be considering pivoting into or pivoting within their company. I said this team right here of Columbia for students and alumni.
Yeah, I can go ahead and go first on that one. Yeah, so I would say there's three advice. The first would be network. Try to learn from as many smart people as you can. Pick their brains, suck in as much information and value you can get as quick as you can. The Columbia network is extremely rich. Utilize it. When I was kind of making that pivot and transition, even though I was inspired by the career path that I ultimately chose, I was pretty flexible, but like I would think I was more inspired by what I didn't want to do. So like being able to speak with people and understand, some of their day-to-day lives, and talk to people who you see you want to be like them, or you want to kind of have a similar career path as they do. Just get a better understanding of what they do. What is their life? Are they able to have like a life outside of work? These different type of things come into play when you're trying to figure out what you want to do in life, and networking is a huge part of that. So I would say the first is networking, and the second, which I think from a personal standpoint I did a lot, was learning through osmosis, or learning by doing. Like you can read all the books, you can do all the practice code, the tests, whatever. But my experience, the most I got out of something was actually doing. So creating a project, or doing something that was interesting to myself, that had all the skills of like the job I was aspiring to be, or the job I was aspiring to do, putting that on my resume when I didn't really have a lot of work experience in that field right away, or right out of college. Um, and just doing that, talking to people, and being okay with not being the best at it right away. So just learning from your mistakes, learning what works. And these are the things that really helped me learn how to go from like law in New York to tech in the Bay Area. There was a lot of learning, and I'm really glad I was able to do that. And then lastly, I would say don't be so hard on yourself. Um, like I feel when I was making the transition, a lot of the time I felt like I chose wrong, and there was like a 8 to 10 month period in which I could have been pursuing this different thing that I know I like, as opposed to something that I don't like. And actually looking back at it, that was the best thing for me, because I think there was a lot to learn about what you do not like and what you should not pursue, based on your preferences, based on where you want to live, a lot of different things. Like I was studying for the LSAT. I was, paying a lot of money for this potential career that I ended up not doing. And I was really hard on myself the first, couple of months. And even though I did have a plan, life throws a lot at you. Wasn't prepared for COVID. Like there was just a whole bunch of things externally that I could not control. And I said to myself, I cannot be hard on myself. Looking back, I shouldn't have put that much pressure, because I ultimately ended up where I wanted to be. Um, so yeah, going through that experience and not understanding fully what I wanted to do right away, and learning what I did not want to do, was very, very valuable. So that was great. And I would say those are the kind of three things: networking, learning by doing, and being kind to yourself as you go through those transitions.
Wow, Kendall, I love it. I know networking is so important, and I know for um, those who are been in the career for a while, what happens is we only network with people in our own profession, unfortunately. And for me, the Columbia Network has been so wonderful because I get to talk to entrepreneurs, Kendall, like yourself, who have pivoted from law to, technology to startup. And then with Ali, she works for LinkedIn, and she has done international work as well in terms of her studies. And our network is so wide. And one of the examples that I can share with you is, as I mentioned, I we've been a active duty military family for the last 20 years, and we were stationed in Germany. So mind you, I don't speak any German, but of course in Europe everyone speaks English. And we have Columbia Alumni Network groups in Germany. So I was pretty active in Frankfurt and met a lot of great people who were in at Columbia. They graduated from either business school or undergrad or medical school or whichever school. We have so many of them, and was able to connect with them. And then Ali, I think during the pandemic, I was able to connect with them through LinkedIn because back then we didn't really, we just, exchange business cards. So, Kendall, I cannot agree with you more about networking. Network outside of your comfort zone because I think for me, it's easier for me to talk to epidemiologists or biostatisticians or public health officials or policymakers because that is my training. But I think it's just so important to mingle. So networking was one of my advice as well, and
Yeah.
leverage your Columbia network for sure. We have one of the strongest and biggest networks out there in the world. And we were also stationed in Asia, and I was able to meet up with some Columbia alum as well. And then we've moved to different states in United States over the years, and I'm always able to find someone who went to Columbia. So, and they're usually in a different profession, so we get to find out more about different things. So network. I think the second thing that I want to mention is be open to new environments, change. I think COVID forced us to think differently, do things differently. And I think it was really hard on some people I was one of them before when I graduated from college, where I kind of planned out my whole life until I was 70. Like, this is what I'm going to do, because I think a lot of the professors at Columbia University, they see your potential. You have a lot of connections in New York and you have this path that you wanted to take, but you realize life never goes the way you want to. And Kendall and Ali, I love what you said. It's knowing what you don't want and being able to choose the things that you want. And that's openness. And then lastly, just being courageous to take the road that has not been taken. A lot of people will tell you, like, what are you going to be doing? Oh, I'm going to go to Germany, leave my job as a state FE. And it just opened a lot of doors in terms of doing things differently. And it sounds really cliche, but for me, I feel like I'm on the right path at the right time, at the right place. Even doing this interview today, I realized all three of us have so much in common. And I don't think we would have discovered that unless we made the time to kind of have this kind of conversation. And leveraging technology. Oh my goodness. Imagine if we're trying to do this, in person. That's really difficult. So yeah, on the top of what Kendall mentioned, those are the three advice that I would probably have for the students and alumni for sure. So go ahead, Ali.
Yeah. I would just want to echo a lot of what's already, especially Ashley, when you mentioned like how I think Kendall, I graduated and I had this whole 5-year plan where I would say, I had this kind of laid out. But I loved your third piece of advice, which is to be kindly deviated from my 5-year plan. And when you do have those moments of inflections where like you're accelerating all the time, take those intentional pauses about how you can turn your projects, whether passion projects or whatnot, and turn those into. I think that's something that I've had a reckoning with. So some advice that I would also have for you, like fear failure a lot. I think it's very natural for students, and afraid of the unknown, but it's been made. I think embracing that and is a great way to kind of start making that unfamiliar for yourself. So reach out then, or reach out to others within your alumni club. And this advice also extends beyond um, whatever university affiliations you may have. I think those are always really soft and kind of warm opening to meeting all over the world essentially. Ashley, you're mentioning leaning into technology because you wouldn't have this conversation today if it weren't advancements that we've had to connect people and through all of the developments that have yeah, I just want to really echo what you said. I think like you said what I wanted to say all. Thanks for coming so well prepared for today's session.
Yeah, so I did have a question for you, for all of you. I was wondering about, I guess, your journey in terms of your current position. What is like the passion project that you're working on at the moment? So Kendall, Ali, and then I could go last.
Yeah. I'll go ahead, and because I know we've been putting Kendall on some of these questions that we've been churning out. Some passion projects that I have at my workplace group, and that's been a real huge source of to meet new people, new folks. So essentially, affinity groups based on a shared experience to help kind of foster more of that diving mindset. So that's something that I've been, in addition to my main role over at LinkedIn, and then also volunteering. Volunteering in the community has been very much investigating. I've always tried to seek nonprofits that can educating some of our underserved communities. So whether that's through the Friends of the Library, through you know reading and literacy, doing a lot of volunteer work there as some of my passion. But yeah, Kendall, what about you?
Yeah, I don't really have many at work, but there is like a passion of mine that I still do till this day, which is music. So when I was at Columbia, I started not an organization, but kind of like this thing based off of mental health around music and being music therapy essentially, but teaching digital music. So I called it Room Tunes, and it was a whole thing when I was like a senior in college, and I kept it going up until like now through COVID, and I teach music and I teach digital music on the side as well. So like that's really a passion project of mine, and I think it's super passionate for me because one, it helps me take away and do something totally different than my day to day. But two, like it also helps me kind of teach and like work with other people, which I really love doing. And as a way not only to like help them with music or help them with whatever they're going through, but as a way to kind of like mentally take a break. And I know like going through college and just through life and through work, we've all been there where we just really need a break. And that's kind of what Room Tunes is supposed to represent, like a place where you can kind of take a break and use music as a way for, therapeutic endeavors. So that's one thing I'm really into, but also just like teaching and volunteering as well, just like Ali. I do teach a lot of stats and comp sci to like high school kids and elementary school kids, and then volunteering, just trying to share my time so that so I can actually honestly meet people who are like like yourselves, and kind of get out there and converse and meet and talk and better engage with the community. So those are kind of my two things I really do on the side and I'm very passionate about. Um, that's totally different than what I do on my day-to-day job.
That is wonderful, Kendall. Kendall, when you say digital music, is it, what does that mean? I just wanted to I'm so curious.
Yeah, so there's just high level, there's like, music, you have instruments and things like that. There are
Mhm.
also systems that basically uh, duplicate the music, like duplicate a piano or guitar and things like that. And you really just need a computer in order to create something. And that's where I think a lot of people who weren't necessarily trained in music, but still want to make music or play music fall into that bucket. Um, so yeah, they have an opportunity to kind of like use a computer and use that system to create music and use their own creativity based on something that's very structured and very very can be mathematical like music can,
Yes.
but you don't really have to know that, and you can just kind of dive in, and that's I think what I love about it is that there's no real barriers to entry in that point. So digital music is like a bigger thing. I think in the audience and working with music and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it just because I know one of the things about, going into music is, people talk about, "I'm not creative, I don't know how to play the piano or guitar, or it's gonna take years," but I love it, so I'll have to check that out. For me, right now, I'm working on a project that is, combining faith or spirituality and public health, just because I think we've been through so much during COVID, and I think it's so important to I think Kendall and Ali, you, talked about this a lot, being kind and also self-care is really important. So I'm looking at interfaith the intersection of faith and public health and spirituality to see how do we how do we create an environment where we're very inclusive of all religion, all disciplines, all everything, and still manage to kind of do that preventive measure that Kendall, you were talking about mental health. Definitely, there's going to be a spike in mental health issues just because we were in social isolation. It's hard because I think we're social creatures to kind of interact. And now that we are interacting in person, still there's that awkwardness because we haven't seen each other in person in 2 years. So I'm working on that project, and I'm meeting with different folks all over the country who are kind of looking at one of the cool projects that one of my colleagues is doing in Chicago is actually combining um, metaverse, so using like virtual reality with faith and spirituality and creating that space so people can still meet and do things in a virtual setting, and be able to create that experience and build that community. So I love how we're leveraging technology and also trying to find ways to build that community and that connectedness as well as self-care. I think all of us, I don't think we mentioned like, we spend time sleeping or or um, doing something else. So yeah, so that's one project that I'm working on, and also working on how to amplify our voices through use of like social media, getting the right messages out there. Because I know during COVID, one of the things that we weren't doing well as a public health professionals is to give that bite-sized message that was easy to understand. I think we were still using those big jargon. So I'm working with a couple of my graduate students to work on what's the right message, how do you create it, and how do you use social media to do that. So and then lastly, I volunteer at the library with my daughter. So we shelve books, and it's really relaxing, like what everyone was mentioning about like doing something that is you don't doesn't take a lot of analytical or executive functioning, right? And then just having fun. So that's what I'm working on. And so, oh, I love these conversations. Wow, where did the time go? We only have about 4 minutes here. So um, I don't know. I wish we could extend some more time.
Definitely.
So, any last minute, I guess the word that comes to my mind right now as we close out the session is just gratitude for me to have this opportunity to talk with you and just learn more about what each of us are doing in our work life and private life and tech life here.
Yeah, yeah, no, same. I'm very, very grateful that you were able to kind of reach out to me and we were able to get to this together. I know you two were the ones doing most of the legwork, and I'm very, very thankful for that. And that we're just able to have some of these things and continue to have them moving forward because I know this is going to be super, super valuable to someone out there. It was for me when I was in COVID. It would have been for me in college, and I know stuff like this is extremely important for people who want to pivot, just want to connect, whatever it may be. And us being able to utilize the technology to do so is just amazing. So thank you all so much for putting this together. I really, really do appreciate it.
And me too. I want to
Yeah.
echo. I have a hard time reaching out and asking for help still to this day, but I know the Columbia network is so strong and also very positive. So I know when I reach out to the alumni group, usually always get an answer. So please feel free to reach out to any of us about anything. I'm more than happy to share any of our journeys, etc.
And I think that there's a lot of value in Ashley. It was so great to hear that you've tapped into that. It's so impressive. I would love to, pick your brain on um, because that's, I think, a huge global network of folks so that we can hear strategies or different like pathways um, and beyond. So yeah, we were able to make this conversation happen because in the current era, I'm sure it can feel the amount of possibilities that are at the tip to have kind of guidance and establish themselves may help to provide some insights for them. So
Thank you so much, Ali and Kendall, again for this session. And in December, we'll have another session with more Columbia alum session with a lot other folks. So please reach out. Happy to interview or have this conversation with other Columbia alumni for sure. So you can find us on LinkedIn, correct, Ali and Kendall? And so I will
correct.
see you soon. Thank you again, and next time.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.